My fiancé declared, I lied about my past. So what? I declared, you're right. Then I hired a PI, discovered the truth, then moved out, without a word. 2 days later, she admitted for a breakdown. I, 32M, thought I knew everything about my fiancé. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and I was planning our wedding for next spring. She was perfect, or so I believed until that Tuesday evening when my entire world crumbled with 5 simple words. We were sitting on our couch, going through wedding invitations, when she casually mentioned that her college friend might not be able to make it. I asked about this friend, someone she'd never mentioned before. That's when she shrugged and told me she'd lied about parts of her past, then asked what the big deal was. The casualness of it hit me like a freight train. Not the lying itself, but how dismissive she was about it. I sat there, invitation half addressed in my hand, staring at this woman I thought I'd spend my life with. She continued sorting through addresses as if she'd just commented on the weather. I asked her what exactly she'd lied about. She waved her hand dismissively and said it was just small stuff. College experiences, old relationships, family drama. Nothing that mattered now. But the way she said it, like my feelings about honesty were an inconvenience, made my stomach turn. I told her she was right. The lie didn't matter. What mattered was how easily she dismissed my concern about it. She looked up from the invitations, finally sensing something was wrong, but I was already standing up. I said I needed some air and walked out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation we'd had, every story she'd told me about her past. How much of it was real? How much was carefully constructed fiction? And more importantly, what was she hiding that required lies in the first place? By morning, I made my decision. I called in sick to work and spent the day researching private investigators. I found one with excellent reviews, a former police detective who specialized in background checks and infidelity cases. I met him that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. The PI was professional and direct. He asked me what I wanted to know, and I told him everything. I wanted to know about her college years, her previous relationships, her family situation. Basically, I wanted to verify every major story she'd ever told me. He quoted me a price that made me wince, but I paid it without hesitation. Meanwhile, at home, she acted like nothing had happened. She asked about my day, showed me more wedding planning details, and seemed genuinely confused when I remained distant. When she asked if I was still upset about our conversation, I told her I was processing it. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. The PI worked fast. Within a week, he had preliminary findings. We met at the same coffee shop, and he slid a manila folder across the table. What I read inside made my hands shake. She hadn't just lied about small things. She'd constructed an entirely different version of herself. The college she claimed to have attended? She'd dropped out after 1 semester. The degree she supposedly had? Fake. The family she described as middle class and stable? Her father was in prison for embezzlement, and her mother had died of a drug overdose when she was 19. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the pattern of relationships. She'd been engaged twice before, not the few casual boyfriends she'd mentioned. Both previous engagements had ended badly, with her leaving suddenly after being caught in significant lies. One ex-fiancé had filed a restraining order after she'd stolen money from their joint account. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at photos and documents that proved the woman I loved was essentially a stranger. The PI asked if I wanted him to dig deeper, but I'd seen enough. I paid him the remainder of his fee and drove home in a daze. That evening, she was excited about cake tastings we had scheduled for the weekend. She showed me pictures of different designs on her phone, asking which ones I liked. I nodded and made appropriate sounds, but inside, I was planning my exit strategy. I couldn't confront her. What would be the point? She'd already shown me how she handled being caught in lies, with dismissal and deflection. Instead, I decided to disappear the same way she'd disappeared from her previous relationships. Quietly and completely. Over the next few days, I began moving my things out gradually. I took items she wouldn't immediately notice. Clothes from the back of the closet, books from the shelves, personal documents from my desk. I opened a new bank account and had my paycheck redirected. I found a furnished apartment across town and put down a deposit. She noticed I was quieter than usual, but attributed it to work stress. When she suggested we take a weekend trip to relax, I agreed, knowing it would be our last. We went to a bed and breakfast in the mountains, and she was so happy, so loving, that I almost felt guilty about what I was planning. But then she told another lie. A small one about recognizing the restaurant we ate at, claiming she'd been there with her sister. I knew from the PI's report that her sister lived in another state and rarely visited. It was such an unnecessary lie, so automatic, that it reinforced my decision. The following Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after her casual confession, I executed my plan. She left for work at 8:30 as usual. By noon, I had moved out completely. I left my engagement ring on the kitchen counter with a note that simply said I was done with the lies and not to contact me. I turned off my phone and spent the day setting up my new apartment. I'd already taken time off work, telling my boss I had a family emergency. Technically, it wasn't untrue. This was an emergency, and I was the only family I had left. That first night in my new place was surreal. I kept expecting her to call, to show up, to somehow find me. But my phone stayed silent. I'd blocked her number, changed my email password, and deactivated my social media accounts. I wanted to disappear as completely as she'd made the truth disappear. The next day, I returned to work. My colleagues noticed I wasn't wearing my ring, but were too polite to ask directly. I told my closest friend that the engagement was off and asked him not to spread it around. He respected my privacy, though I could see the questions in his eyes. On Thursday evening, 2 days after I'd moved out, my friend called me. He said she'd contacted him, asking if he knew where I was. She'd told him she was having some kind of breakdown and needed to talk to me urgently. He'd refused to give her my information, but wanted to know if I was okay. I told him I was fine and asked him to ignore any further contact from her. But curiosity got the better of me. I created a fake social media account and looked her up. Her latest post was from that morning. A long, rambling message about how people sometimes make mistakes and how love should be about forgiveness and second chances. The comments were mostly from her friends offering support, clearly not knowing the full story. But reading between the lines of her post, I could see she was unraveling. She mentioned not sleeping, not eating, and feeling like her world was falling apart. Part of me felt satisfied. She was finally experiencing consequences for her actions. But another part felt hollow about the whole situation. Update 1. 3 weeks after I moved out, she found me. I was leaving my new apartment building when she appeared from behind a parked car. She looked terrible. Unwashed hair, dark circles under her eyes, clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. She started talking rapidly, saying she'd hired her own PI to find me and that we needed to talk. I told her there was nothing to discuss and tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm. She said she could explain everything, that the lies weren't what I thought they were. I pulled free and told her she'd already explained everything when she said lying about her past wasn't a big deal. She followed me to my car, talking the entire time. She admitted that yes, she'd lied about college, about her family, about her past relationships. But she said she'd done it because she was ashamed, because she thought I wouldn't love her if I knew the truth. She said she'd been planning to tell me everything after we were married. I stopped walking and looked at her. I asked her if she really thought lying to me for 3 years and then planning to reveal the truth after I was legally bound to her was somehow better than being honest from the beginning. She started crying and said she knew it was wrong, but she'd been scared of losing me. I told her she'd lost me anyway, and that her fear had created the exact outcome she'd been trying to avoid. She begged me to give her another chance, promising she'd never lie again. But I'd heard those promises before, in the PI's report about her previous relationships. I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see her collapse against a nearby car, sobbing. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I didn't turn around. Update 2. A month later, she tried a different approach. She contacted my mother, who called me confused and concerned. She said my ex-fiancé had shown up at her house, explaining that we'd had a fight and asking my mother to help us reconcile. She'd told my mother that I was being unreasonable about some minor disagreements, and that she just wanted to make things right. My mother, who had always liked her, was sympathetic until I explained the real situation. I told her about the lies, the fake degree, the hidden past, and the pattern of deception. My mother was shocked. She'd been looking forward to having her as a daughter-in-law and had never suspected anything was wrong. I asked my mother not to have any further contact with her, and she agreed. But she also asked me if I was sure I was doing the right thing. She said everyone makes mistakes, and that maybe I was being too harsh. I appreciated her concern, but I explained that this wasn't about making mistakes. It was about fundamental dishonesty and the casual way she dismissed my feelings about it. Around the same time, I started hearing from mutual friends. She'd been telling people that I'd abandoned her without explanation, that I'd just disappeared one day and wouldn't return her calls. Some of our friends were taking her side, thinking I was being cruel. Others were asking me for my version of events. I decided to tell the truth to anyone who asked directly, but I didn't go out of my way to defend myself. The friends who knew me well enough to ask for my side of the story were the ones worth keeping. The others could believe whatever they wanted. Update 3. 2 months after I moved out, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked better, cleaner, more put together, but there was something different about her demeanor. She approached me cautiously and asked if we could talk. I told her we had nothing to discuss, but she persisted. She said she'd been in therapy and had realized how much damage her lying had caused, not just to our relationship, but to her previous ones as well. She said she understood now why I'd left, and that she didn't expect me to take her back. She just wanted to apologize and to let me know that she was working on becoming a better person. I listened without commenting. When she finished, I told her I was glad she was getting help, but that it didn't change anything between us. She nodded and said she understood. Then she asked if I could ever forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine. I thought about it for a moment. I told her that forgiveness wasn't about her deserving it. It was about me not wanting to carry anger around forever. I said I forgave her for lying to me, but that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed. She started crying again, but quietly this time. She thanked me for listening and said she hoped I'd find happiness with someone who deserved me. Then she walked away, and I haven't seen her since. Final update. It's been 6 months now since I moved out. I've settled into my new life, made some new friends, and started dating again, though I'm taking it very slowly. I've learned to trust my instincts better and to pay attention to red flags I might have ignored before. I heard through mutual friends that she moved to another city for a fresh start. Apparently, she's still in therapy and has been honest with her new friends about her past. Part of me hopes she's genuinely changed, though I'll never know for sure. People sometimes ask me if I regret how I handled the situation. They think I should have given her a chance to explain, that I should have tried couples counseling, that I should have been more forgiving. But I don't regret it. She had 3 years to be honest with me, and instead, she chose to build our relationship on a foundation of lies. The moment she dismissed my concerns about her dishonesty, she showed me who she really was. Not someone who had made mistakes, but someone who didn't think honesty in a relationship was important. That's not someone I could build a life with, no matter how much I thought I loved her. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd been honest from the beginning. Maybe I would have accepted her past and loved her anyway. Maybe we could have worked through her family issues and her insecurities together. But I'll never know, because she never gave me that chance. What I do know is that I'm better off now. I'm with someone who values honesty as much as I do. Someone who understands that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. We're taking things slowly, but there's a foundation of truth between us that I never had with my ex-fiancée. The revenge I thought I wanted, seeing her suffer consequences for her actions, turned out to be hollow. Her breakdown didn't make me feel better. It just made me sad for both of us. Real justice wasn't about making her pay for lying to me. It was about refusing to accept a relationship built on deception and finding something better. I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and building a better life without the person who hurt you. She may have lied about her past, but I wasn't going to let her lies define my future.